We just talked about natural selection, and what's important about natural selection is that it leads to biodiversity, or biological differences in a population. Quick little video for you guys. Please go back to the PowerPoint and press play on that one. So what is biodiversity? Biodiversity is the variety of all living things and their interactions. So living things and what they and how they interact. Things that lead to biodiversity include genetic diversity, aka differences in alleles, ecosystem diversity, right? Biomes, distinct climates, certain species, and especially like vegetation. Functional diversity is a range of what the species does in its habitat. Now, because species adapt and change, there are numerous different species of plants and animals, right? Things are going to adapt to their environment, and that's going to change who and what survives. Biodiversity ultimately stems from reproduction. Reproduction leads to our different traits or variations. Now, differential reproduction, this occurs because the environment can't support, it can only support a limited population, right? It can't be just unlimited species just keep going and going and going. Okay, so not all individuals will then get to reproduce to their full potential. So differential reproduction means not everybody reproduces. For the project, you need to specify which of them are more likely to reproduce. Now, causes of variations. New genetic combinations occur through meiosis. When this happens, we get new combinations of genes, and it also leads to mutations and kind of like a randomness. This then leads to variations in the population. Again, during replication, when we get those like crosses over, errors occur. So then that leads to mutations. These right here are some odd little mutations. Some of them are like flowers. Here, this is eye color. And this one, the little cat has little extra toe beans. So cute. Now, another cause of variation can be mutations. Mutations are caused by environmental factors, i.e. radiation, pollution, UV light, okay? And a change over time, that's going to be the scientific theory of evolution that explains how life on Earth changes over time through changes in the genes of populations. Populations evolve when genes mutate and give some of these traits that enhance the ability to survive. So these right here are very similar species, but you have slight differences that better help that species to survive in its particular environment. Now, change over time. Populations evolve by becoming genetically different over time, aka mutating, right? Remember, it can be random, it can occur spontaneously, it can be from external things like radiation, and then it can also lead to a heritable trait that's then passed down to the next population. Now, with natural selection, we have adaptive traits. Adaptive traits are genetically favorable traits that increase the probability to survive and have babies. Again, trait is heritable, okay? When faced with an environmental change, species will either adapt, migrate, or die. Okay, so we're either going to adapt and change, or we're going to move to a new area, or we'll die, okay? That being said, evolution through natural selection, right? Genes mutate. Individuals are selected. If that selection is beneficial, then they'll survive and have babies. If not, they need to move to a new area or they die, okay? These are some really cool little traits that are naturally selected for. All right, limits of adaptation. So please keep in mind, species that take longer to reproduce are less likely to have these adaptations occurring. So humans, right? We have a skin that's not usually harmed by UV radiation too badly, right? We have some protections in place. So mutations generally are going to take a long time. They have to occur in usually being passed from parents, and then that then takes a long time to get into the population because we reproduce so slowly. So that being said, in order for it to really take over a population, the desired trait needs to already be in the gene pool. You must also have a high reproductive capacity so that it can spread that trait more rapidly. Now, with this in mind, please remember, just because a species is the fittest does not mean it's the strongest, okay? Organisms develop traits not just because they think, woohoo, it's going to be useful. Sometimes it just kind of gets into the population. An example is the sloth. those guys, like, I am so impressed at their survival because they will just like straight fall asleep anywhere, okay? They've been known to like just horribly dying, like horrible things, because they just are so slow and lazy, okay? With nature, there's no grand plan of like the perfect species. It's all kind of chance in what survives and what happens that leads to a species surviving versus dying off. So, what is species diversity and why is it important? Species diversity is a major component of biodiversity, and it kind of tends to increase the sustainability of an ecosystem. Right here's a really quick video link. I want you to click on that, and I want you to look at how much diversity there is in the species around this watering hole. There's a huge amount of species, right? We have a huge biodiversity, and these species are interacting with each other, right? Sometimes that means they're competing for resources like water. This video here is going to walk you through speciation, or why we start to get that genetic variation. This really applies to Darwin and his finches and how these species are all finches, but they have variation in them. Keep in mind, we have species richness and species evenness. Okay? Speciation, it consists of these two factors, and they're going to vary with geographic location, and species richness can kind of start to decline. Okay, quick little pictures for you to walk you through this. Okay, species richness is the count of species living in an area or a list of the species. So if you look at these pictures here, you'll see that there's only 17 individuals. In this one right here, there's not really very much variation, right? In this picture here, we have a huge variation of the species that are living in that area. So it's going to be very rich. Species evenness has to do with distribution, right? How many of the species are located in that area? In this bottom picture, it's primarily one species that's taken over, versus on this top one, we have a lot of species variation of like lots of different types in abundance, okay? So species evenness, it's going to be the highest when all species have the same abundance. Last little video for you guys. If you could please press play. Let me know if you guys have any question, okay? Take care, guys. Bye-bye.